So this is blog number 10. I'm in New York, for those of you that don't know, which was one of the challenges I set myself, is to go somewhere that made me feel really uncomfortable. So here I am. Now something I do when I travel is I sort of head down, nose in book, iPod on, I don't talk to anybody when I'm on the plane or when I'm traveling. This is sort of me. I'm not very good with strangers or people I don't know. I guess that could be strange, but they're not necessarily. So one of the things that I'm challenging myself on this particular trip is to socialize with people I don't know. Rather than going through New York like this and being like, I am going to the museum now, I am now going to go over here and I'm going to do this, and never really interacting with anybody. So this evening I'm going to the Museum of Fine Art, the Met, and I'm gonna do a meetup thing there where I have to meet new people and I get to do something I like. So for any of you that are inspired by this and would like to, hey, I'm gonna challenge myself to go out and meet people or something, I figure why not make it easy on yourself and, pick something at least that you feel comfortable in, if you're gonna have to meet people that you don't know and you feel awkward or whatever. So stay tuned, I'll let you know how that goes. So yesterday I started this blog that I was going to post today with how I had gone to this meetup group and it had been fabulous and I was outgoing and I met people and blah blah blah. But the truth is I missed the meetup group. I was late, maybe on purpose, I'm not really sure. I did get lost. And I did make an effort. I went to the information desk and asked, and I was actually really relieved that I had missed them. So yeah, I had to think about it as I wandered around sort of half-heartedly looking for these people that apparently had like crazy artistic name tag labels on themselves. And just the idea of having to make up a crazy name tag label, I was like, I don't want to do that. So I really looked at it and I looked at what uncomfortable is, and I realized for me there's uncomfortable where I could, if I stepped into it, it would create something greater and I actually would be glad that I did it. Like coming to New York, for example. It was uncomfortable because it was a new city and all kinds of things. It's a really different place. But it wasn't, it was more that it was going to improve my life. It was going to be a contribution to my life. And going to this meetup group or missing this meetup group was a contribution to my life, because I realized as I sort of watched, because there were other meetup groups there was like a museum one, blah, blah. So I watched their interaction and I was a little bit of a voyeur, I was looking at who they were and what they were doing, and I had this sense of relief flood through my body that I didn't have to be part of it, that I didn't have to be fake nice and make conversation and that kind of thing. It didn't peel at all, actually. So instead I walked around the museum by myself, and what I often do in a new city or a place that I don't know, or even a place I do know, is I sort of let myself be guided through it. Like whatever sort of feels good, I go in that direction. And so I did that, and I was going through the American part of the museum, and I was gonna go somewhere else, and I suddenly felt drawn into this sort of corner of the room, which was really odd because there wasn't a lot there. It was a few statues, and what I discovered was this huge urn by Frank Lloyd Wright, who was one of my favorite architects. Just simplicity of design, and he just does some really interesting stuff. And it was actually from, I think it was called the Imperial Hotel in Japan, and it was really cool, and they had a picture of it. And as I was standing there, reading the blurb about it, it said it had been demolished and things, and I was like, oh, that's too bad. And this guy wandered over, and he's probably in his mid-50s, and he said, would you like to hear a story about this? And I said, sure. And he told me a little bit about it and how he had seen the facade. They had kept the facade, they just moved it somewhere else, and he said it was worth going to Japan just to see it. And he said, oh, I'm sorry if I had to intrude, and I said, no, that was fine, you know, I was grateful for the information. And he said, oh, I'm a teacher, I couldn't help myself. And so we had this nice little exchange, and I sort of went off happily on my way. And I really enjoyed it, and I walked back through Central Park and just had fun looking at people and the strange things that were going on. And as I got back into Harlem, there was this amazing gospel choir, and so I crossed the street from them so that I could watch them, and they were really cool. And this guy came up to me and he was like, oh, you know, you really like this music? And I said, yeah, it's really cool. And he said, oh, well, they're a good church, but my church, which is on such and such, is so much better, and the choir is really good. And he introduced himself, and he said, oh, you know, I should go on a tour of Harlem with him, and he could show me the sights, and he'd lived there his whole life. And I politely declined because it didn't feel quite right, but I realized that it was those little moments that I treasure and I really enjoy, rather than being part of a big group. That's not to say that sometimes I enjoy being part of a big group, but most of the time I just like having those little moments, and I'm really grateful for them. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that on this adventure I'm on with this blog, is that I'm discovering more and more that uncomfortable is something you have to look at. Is it just a preference? Or is it something that, if you would just take that step, would lead you to the dreams and adventures you've been looking for? So yeah, so thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.